ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Twin City Trio Podcast here on YouTube. My name is Cale Fleming. Alongside me, as always, my two hosts, Gavin Campbell and Tyson Snyder. Appreciate you guys bearing with us as me and Gavin all had finals the last couple of weeks, and Tyson working third shift.
I was sick.
Yeah, and he's sick, so we just had a lot come up these last couple of weeks, so it is good to be back in this room with these two gentlemen here. New format, though, we're going with. We're just going to kind of roll with whatever we find
We don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Normally we have a bunch of notes prepared as to what we're going to talk about for the day, but I'm kind of tired of doing that. So, yeah.
Just do it.
We're just going to do
talk.
it.
Let's get it on.
First thing I want to talk about, though, is the NFL. There's a looming topic I keep seeing real quick, as we'll get into the Bears and the Cowboys. But who is your guys' MVP? I don't know if we've talked about it or if we talked about it very much yet. As of right now, who would you guys rank as your, or way too early, I guess it's not too early because we're getting around that time, MVP? Tyson, I want to hear your opinion first.
League MVP?
The
entire
MVP,
league?
The entire league of the MVP.
I think there's several players that you have to include in this conversation, at least two of them being on defense, in Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack. It's very, very incredibly hard for a defensive player to win this award, and I think it's very possible this year. So I think those two have to be in the conversation. I would also throw Patrick Mahomes. He's been outstanding from start to finish so far this year, leading the league in touchdowns and passing yards, or at least close in the passing yards category. Drew Brees, you have to put him in the conversation too. Even though he hasn't had as good of a season as Mahomes so far, according to the stat book. But the other player, now this is also a little biased, I think you have to throw Zeke into consideration as well. He's leading the league in rushing yards. He's leading the league in scrimmage yards. And he's the main reason that the Cowboys are even a contender this year. I guess I'm switching it up, just getting a little bit from all the positions, but I think the front runner right now has to be Mahomes. I think those two defensive players are definitely up there, and I'd like to see Zeke at least in the conversation.
Passing yards so far, Patrick Mahomes on the season has 4,543.
Yeah, that's a lot, especially for a second-year quarterback.
543 passing yards. I don't passer rating, though, speaking of Drew Brees, you go over, he's got a 120.8. Man, there's a whole lot of Patrick Mahomes adjusted yards passed per attempt, 9.5. I'm not even sure what that means, but it's a cool stat. Passing touchdown percentage, Patrick Mahomes 8.7. He's leading that. I mean, if you look on here, it's Drew Brees and Patrick Mahomes when it comes to quarterbacks.
Basically any stat, yeah.
And then for rushing yards, you move down into that. Rushing TDs, Gurley's got 15.
Yeah.
Rushing yards per game, Zeke is in first, as you stated, with 97.1. Yards per reception, Cortland Sutton from Denver, he's got that with 19.1. Man, I don't know. Ezekiel, everybody you named off is a good contender. Gav, who do you think should deserve it?
All those guys are good candidates. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes lighting it up, but I think after losing Kareem Hunt a couple weeks ago, really hurt the Kansas City offense and what they were able to do because, man, was that guy a dynamite out of the backfield. Also, shout out to their rookie running back in that Chargers game that had, I think, 3 touchdowns. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but wow,
I'll look it up.
What a game for him. But I think we saw a weakness in their offense without Kareem Hunt. This is one of the few times we've seen them score less than 30, unless we're talking about Baltimore before overtime this season. I also think Drew Brees is in there. I'm glad that you brought up defensive players. I do think Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack obviously deserve praise in their own respective rights. One guy I want to talk about, and this might be homerism. You know, I know you used Ezekiel Elliott for yours, but I need to go with Eddie Jackson of the Chicago Bears. This guy has been nothing but incredible, and I think the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet.
Underrated, for sure.
The things this guy is able to do, not only that, in his second year, this is a sophomore in the NFL. Right now he's got 39 solo tackles as a safety in 13 games. That's phenomenal to me in his own right. He's got 6 interceptions on the year, and 2 of those are pick sixes. He's also got a fumble recovery for a touchdown. He's got 7 tackles for loss from the safety position, and he also has a sack. I just think everything he's able to do, from being 20 yards deep in the secondary on any given play, and just all the pass deflections and disruptions and the way that he alters where quarterbacks throw the football. He is the reason the front seven of the Chicago Bears is able to do what they're able to do every single week. And like I said, the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, I mean, this guy's just a junkyard dog. And I think he really deserves some consideration for MVP this year.
Darius Leonard, when it comes to defense, too, 23-year-old linebacker in 12 games. He's got 1 interception, 10 yards total, 4 forced fumbles, 1 recovery, 90 solo tackles. So he's leading when it comes to defense. He's leading the league in tackles. Leighton Vander Esch, he's got 82, the rookie for the Cowboys. And then the only Chicago Bear that's in the top – there's no Chicago Bears in the top 10 anymore. The 11th. Number 11 this season is Roquan Smith, another rookie with 73 solo tackles. So defense, I mean, everybody's pleading their case for Defensive Player of the Year. Jalen Smith's also on this list. He's got 64 solos. I don't know, man. It's going to be a tough race. I got to give it to Drew Brees, though, just for the sheer fact that I feel like Drew Brees this is the year he's going to win it. They had a tough loss against Dallas, and did they lose? No, they haven't.
They haven't lost since week 1.
Right.
Besides the loss to Dallas.
And that was the Fitzmagic, back when the Fitzmagic thing
They lost 48-40, so.
Well, and they almost choked it away again against the same Tampa Bay team with Jameis Winston starting.
Because
so
they didn't score for the first 3 quarters.
Right. I think I like to pick for Drew Brees just solely on narrative because he still has yet to win an MVP award, believe it or not, as great as this guy is. And if he's going to get one, it might as well be this year, right?
Does he have to win the Super Bowl in order to get it, though?
No, technically not. But the MVP is almost always, 99% of the time, the quarterback from the best team in the league. Whether that's Best by wins or the team that wins the Super Bowl, it's almost always that quarterback.
And that's ever since Lawrence Taylor won it back in the 80s.
Right.
So the past 30-something years, I mean, that's exactly the way it's gone. So.
Yeah, very rarely it's been a running back, or I think once it's been a receiver. But almost always it's just the quarterback from the best team, and I think the Saints are clearly the best team so far this year, especially considering the Chiefs' tough loss to the Chargers. But I think Drew Brees is making his case just by having the nation's best offense, the best team, sitting at 11.
Granted, if he wants to paint a better narrative for himself, he needs to pick it up these last 3 weeks against the Panthers because he's got 2 games against them, and I can't remember their other opponent. But they play the Panthers twice in 3 weeks. What he did against Tampa Bay and the week before that against the Cowboys, they need to pick it up because if the offense stays stagnant, people are going to remember the most recent games towards the end of the season rather than what he did for the first 8 to 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. And if he really wants that award, he needs to put that in people's minds that, hey, I am the best quarterback in this league. Vote for me.
Sunday, the Saints have the Steelers at home. Then they travel to the Panthers, and then they got the Panthers back at home on 12:30, week 17. So speaking of best teams, let's move on to this. The best team in football, supposedly, according to record, came into Chicago and just got smacked. Jared Goff didn't look like he knew what was going on. He didn't want to play up there in the cold. He was scared. Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith were coming at him. Akeem Hicks had a phenomenal game that night. Gavin, I was glued to my TV. I made sure I've been working third shift as well. I made sure I woke up extra early to watch that game. Jared Goff and Sean McVay rattling off all our players. Yeah, phenomenal. He didn't know what to do against that defense. What was your takeaway from Sunday night?
My takeaway is that the Rams are no longer the best team in the NFL, rather the NFC, period. I think the Saints still have that title. I think the Bears, though, I think they've solidified themselves in second place as the best team in the NFC, if not the second best team in the NFL. Arguable, of course, but I think that's where I'm going to be. And this is unbiased opinion. I do think they're the second best team in the NFL, statistically speaking. The defense, like you said, Jared Goff, he was shook from the very first sack that he took, very first pick that he threw. Like I said, I just mentioned Eddie Jackson. He had a pick. Let's talk about Prince Amukamara taking 2 away in that game. I know one was kind of a gimme on a last-second play at the end of the half there, but a pick is a pick. I just can't believe the Rams were held to 6 points. This is the first time that the Rams didn't score a touchdown in a game all year.
First time they didn't score 30 points, or second time they didn't score 30 points all year. The other game was 29, so.
Right, so pretty close. And I believe that was the Green Bay game as well. So, speaking of Green Bay, can't wait to play them on Sunday. But
I can't either.
Getting back to that, I think we need to talk about the other side of the football and Mr. Trubisky. Man, did he look rusty in that game.
Whew, okay, me and Tyson talked about that the other day. He looked like he did the first 3 weeks of the season. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and believe me, I'm wearing his jersey right now, as you guys can see. If you're listening to this, you can't tell, but I am wearing my Mitch Trubisky jersey right now.
He was 16 for 30 with 110 yards, an average of 3.7. One touchdown, 3 picks. His quarterback rating was 31.9.
Right, but can we talk about that touchdown that he did throw to offensive lineman I think his first name is Brandon, I believe. Bradley. Man, that was one of the best plays I've seen all season.
There literally wasn't a skill position player on the field.
No.
It was all defensive and offensive linemen. That was awesome. 10 fat boys out there.
Yeah, and that's the perfect misdirection, especially when you know they don't have cinder block hands like most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Akeem Hicks sold that play, though.
Absolutely. And I love that they're starting to incorporate him more into the offense. And maybe they had this going in the summertime, and they're just now deciding to bring it out so that you didn't know how to stop it, right? They were saving it for this game. Man, I was so impressed with everything except Mitch, but I don't want to say that I wasn't impressed because he did have some moments. I mean, let's not forget the Rams still have a top 5 defense in the NFL, so it's not like, they're going up against scum. They're pretty good players. We were just talking about Aaron Donald, but can we talk about Aaron Donald not being able to really be himself in this game?
Charles Leno Jr., shout out to him.
They took him completely out of the game. It was like he was non-existent.
Absolutely. So, just everything I thought went extremely well. This is how football should be in December in Chicago at Soldier Field. You should have a 15-6 final score. I was just really surprised that the Bears were even able to put up a touchdown against this defense. I know that we're used to playing in the cold, but like I said, man, the Rams defense, they're tenacious, and even though they let up a lot of points, when they want to, they can shut you down. So I was really proud of this team, 9-point victory, 2 scores, taking out supposedly the best team in the league by some. So overall, just really impressed.
I'm at the point in the season when it comes to Chicago that I would rather watch the defense than I would the offense.
Absolutely.
What's going to happen next on defense? Because in the game, Roquan Smith had an interception. Prince Amukamara, as you mentioned earlier, had one. Kyle Fuller had one, and Eddie Jackson had another one. That dude's racking them up left and right. If that guy's not a Pro Bowler this season, then something's completely wrong.
If the Bears don't have 3 or 4 guys on that defense in the Pro Bowl, something is fishy.
You can throw Roquan Smith in there as a rookie. Fuller. Well, yeah, I know you're not a big Fuller fan, but I love Fuller. I feel like he's really stepped his game up in the last, this season.
He has. And real quick, let me apologize to him because this version of Kyle Fuller, I have not seen the past couple years in the league. He has completely transformed himself to being the number 1 corner on this defense. And if he can continue this, he can stay in Chicago for as long as he wants.
Absolutely. And then Khalil Mack, too. Khalil Mack, obviously, is a Pro Bowler every year.
That's gimme Pro Bowler. Him and Akeem Hicks should make it. Eddie Jackson obviously should make it. If Fuller, Jackson, Hicks, and Mack all make it, I think that would probably satisfy me as a Bears fan. But I think, like you said, Roquan Smith deserves a shout-out. I think that even Danny Trevathan, I don't think he gets enough credit for being the 3rd linebacker out there. He's putting in a lot of work. And then shout out to Bryce Callahan. He's injured right now. Hopefully he'll be back before the playoffs. He deserves some credit, too.
Absolutely.
And shout out to McManus for stepping up in that game.
Going and going.
The depth of this team, I swear, the depth of this team is what's impressed me the most, especially on the defensive side.
So let's move from one good, stellar defense to another in Tyson's Dallas Cowboys. Man, they played a heck of a game against Philadelphia last week.
Another game to where I was glued to my TV.
I couldn't move either.
Yeah.
That fourth quarter was kind of wacky, if you ask me. But Tyson, give us a breakdown of Sunday.
Well, there was a lot of points scored in that fourth quarter, which wasn't a bad thing. Both teams were about due. Those defenses played a really, really good game up until that point. Considering Dallas had like 300 yards by halftime, and they had only put up 6 points. So the Eagles' defense was playing extremely well. The Cowboys' defense was playing extremely well. Had another half shutout against a good offense. But that fourth quarter is kind of due for everyone to start scoring some points. And Amari Cooper just absolutely went off. Had 217 yards on 10 catches and 3 touchdowns, including the game winner off a tip off of I can't remember dude's name.
His last name's Jenkins, I believe.
Off of his hand, and he just walked into the end zone. It was an incredible game to watch.
Jenkins. Sorry.
It was Asul.
Where's he?
Asul Douglas.
Yeah,
Douglas, that's right. I'm sorry.
Douglas.
Yeah, Rasul Douglas, that's right. But it's an incredible game to watch, and we saw that defense show up again and absolutely just dominate for basically an entire ball game minus 4 minutes. The thing that impressed me the most, at the end of that game, the Cowboys had held the ball for over 45 minutes.
Yep.
It was like 45 minutes and 33 seconds or something like that. You got to think the quarters are 15 minutes long, which means there's 60 minutes in a game, and they played an additional 8 minutes in overtime.
Man, thanks for that math there.
So, yeah, break it down. They held the ball for over 75% of the game. It makes it really, really hard to score and compete if you can't get the ball. It also makes it really hard for your defense to keep playing if they're on the field for that long, which is a part of the reason we saw that fourth quarter blow up and all the points scored. So it was really just a cool game to watch. I didn't even mind seeing the Eagles score points because I knew we were going to win in the end. It was fun to watch them. The Cowboys always choke. Yeah, let's see.
Can I go back to that play for a second, that the game-winning touchdown in overtime? Because when I saw that happen, I couldn't believe it because the corner played that perfectly.
Oh,
I mean, you can't
it
play
was
it.
an awful pass from Dak, and
You
it was
can't.
perfect coverage.
Yeah, you couldn't play it any better. And Amari let him get in front, and he didn't capitalize. I mean, it was a pick. That's what it was. If anything, maybe not taking it all the way for a touchdown, but it was definitely an interception. The Eagles would have had a chance to go get the field goal for the win. And the fact that the Cowboys, after everything that happened, in going to overtime, that Amari was the difference, and that Jerry Jones. This all goes back to when he traded for him. That he actually had the testicular fortitude to make this trade for Amari and bring him to Dallas. I mean, if we just look at his track record, and you've been a Cowboys fan, I'm sure you know, he has never won to actually go all out on the first-round pick because he loves drafting his guys. I think now that we look back on it, Amari Cooper was well worth the first-round pick, probably 2 at this point.
This is a brand-new Cowboys team with the addition of Amari Cooper, is it not? The offense, Dak looks so much more comfortable out there with Amari Cooper. I mean, he's got Zeke in the back.
Dak is a guy that needs a number one receiver. Playing in college, Laquan Treadwell played for Ole Miss, but he had big receivers. He's had big receivers his whole life. He needs a big guy to take some pressure off of him, and that's exactly what Amari Cooper is. He is a threat all over the field. We see it on 5-yard out routes. We see it on 30-yard streaks down the sideline. It doesn't matter. But that's what he is. He's a threat, and it takes a lot of pressure off of Dak, and it takes a lot of pressure off the entire offense.
And I'm glad that we brought up Dak Prescott, because another thing I want to talk about, Dak Prescott only had one other game this season to where he threw over 300 yards. This game he threw for over 450. So if we can put that into perspective, what Amari Cooper has done for not only Dak Prescott but this Cowboys offense. I mean, it's nothing short of incredible. I mean, the guy had 217 yards on, 13 catches or 10 catches? I forgot what it was.
10 catches.
That's absolutely insane. That's like a Madden game. He had some Madden 19 statistics in this game.
Yeah, the Cowboys offense had a total 576 yards that game, which is incredible. They're putting up about 350 yards a game, with 120 coming from Zeke, and then usually about 200 from Dak through the air. So for him to double his yardage per game, I honestly, he was averaging, I want to say 224 yards a game or something like that before that game, and then he threw for 455. The other thing, one of the things that had irked me most so far this year was the game against the Texans, 4th and 1 from the Texans' 40-yard line, and we punted it. I think Jason Garrett finally corrected that mistake, 4th and 1 from the Eagles' 35-yard line, and they went for it. 3 plays later, we scored the game-winning touchdown. So I think it was big. He's starting to a lot of that once again goes back to Amari Cooper. He's got that confidence in his offense now, and he's willing to do these things, and he's willing to go out and win instead of playing conservative. He wants to get out there. He wants to win. I think he wants to save his job. He's saving everybody on the Cowboys' jobs because it was looking rough sitting at 3-5.
Yep.
Now 5 weeks later at 8-5, it's looking a lot better. Jobs are sitting a little bit more comfortable. They're on top of the division.
And they're on pace.
A win or an Eagles loss guarantees a win for the division, guaranteed in the playoffs this year, which is big because they struggled making the playoffs with Jason Garrett at the helm. So
well, and speaking of playoffs, they have a familiar foe waiting for them in the first round if things hold the form in New Orleans, which we've seen what they were able to do to that offense. Now, the big question is, if it does hold, will they be able to do that in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome?
I think it's possible. This defense doesn't care where it's at. And I think we've seen that throughout the season, and we've seen that throughout Cowboys history. The Cowboys play better away from home than they do at home. They did struggle at the beginning part of this year, but then we go back and they've won 5 weeks straight, and it didn't matter where they were, and they've absolutely dominated at everywhere. So I don't think they can put up the performance that they did the first time. I highly, highly doubt anyone's going to let Drew Brees only score 10 points again this season. It's very unlikely that'll happen. But do I think they can hold him to 250 yards and two touchdowns? Let the Saints score about 20 points? Yeah, absolutely. And I think the offense has the drive now that they can actually compete with that.
All I want to say is at this point in the year, I'm going to end our NFL discussion with this. Did we expect the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bears to be leading their division?
No.
I expected the Cowboys. In our predictions before the season started, I picked the Cowboys to win the division. I picked the Bears to not do so well.
Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way. Hey, I just want to clarify. I picked them to go 10-6. Granted, I think they're going to finish, if not 12-4, I think minimum 11-5 right now. I think that we could drop that last game to Minnesota at Minnesota if we want to rest guys, because the division will be locked up by then. But we're going to smoke Green Bay, hopefully. And then the 49ers, I understand that they just whacked the Redskins and also the the Broncos just last week. I don't think that they'll be able to hold off the Bears when they come to San Francisco. But
there's no way.
I want to talk about that real quick.
Sure.
So we haven't been able to record since Mike McCarthy got fired.
Right.
This is kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say this is the make or break deal for the Bears. I feel like it is. It's a big game, but every game is a big game to me now. Aaron Rodgers, I feel like, is going to be on a little bit of a redemption tour kind of here to prove that, Mike McCarthy was the issue. And that kind of makes me a little nervous, honestly. In all honesty, I don't want to play against Aaron Rodgers the way he was last season or the season before. Playoff Aaron Rodgers, essentially. I don't know if I necessarily want to see that. So that kind of makes me a little nervous.
Well, see, that's fine, but I think Aaron Rodgers has it in the back of his mind that, oh, yeah, I remember week 1, Khalil Mack came in and broke my flipping leg. So I think that he'll probably have that to think about. Not only that, we're not going to Green Bay. He's coming to Soldier Field this time around. So.
I get that.
No one ever wants to play against Aaron Rodgers. But I do want to play against Joe Philbin, their new interim head coach, who was the head coach when Hard Knocks went to Miami and recorded with the Dolphins. Joe Philbin was really, really good at going 6-10. So I do want to play against him. I think he's got a great offensive mind, but I don't think he's an outstanding head coach. So I'm feeling a little bit more confident there. But, yeah, I think the defense has definitely matured. We saw how good they were from week 1, and they're just still getting better. And the offense has really come too. Mitch finding his groove in the middle of the season. Yeah, last week was rough, but I'm not worried about it. He was just coming off that shoulder injury, and that's what looked like was bugging him, was his shoulder. He was overthrowing balls. That's where all 3 of his picks came from, was on overthrows. So I'm not worried about that too much. He'll settle in. He'll get healthier, and his arm won't bug him as much.
Well, and let's also think about this. The last game the Bears played in before Mitch got hurt that we found out he was sitting down, they were in a dome inside Detroit. So it's been 3 weeks, and in 3 weeks the weather got pretty chilly outside. And he hadn't thrown a football in game time at Soldier Field in Chicago since a month ago almost. So,
speaking of that, sorry, continue.
Oh, I just want to say I think that played a big factor in it because we know when the air is drier, it's a lot easier to overthrow your targets. So I think that he'll adjust to that.
When we saw how it affected Goff, too. Goff had 4 picks. It was just a bad game for quarterbacks that game. So.
Right.
But there's no doubt in my mind that the Cowboys have their division locked up. I mean, that's pretty much a given at this point because the Redskins are now on their 17th string quarterback due to bad luck they've had, and the Eagles just lost Carson Wentz again unless Nick Foles decides he wants to come out and be Super Bowl MVP.
That's what I'm worried about. Is Nick Foles coming in and having
worried about that at all?
Nothing to worry about.
They went 1-1 with him at the beginning of the season, mainly because of the defense, and the defense has taken a huge step back since the first 2 weeks.
For sure, absolutely.
I've never been worried about Nick Foles in my entire life.
I've never been worried about Nick Foles except when he has literally nothing to play for. When Nick Foles has nothing to play for, that's when he decides to show up.
He'll show up for 2 weeks to get his contract, and then he'll die again.
What I'm worried about, and I know the Eagles have not a difficult schedule, but it's not easy.
Right.
And I'm afraid Nick Foles will come in, and if he wants to show up and, throw 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, that's going to be a problem. as much as I don't want it to be. But as long as the Cowboys win out, they got nothing to worry about. And, again, not that they have an easy schedule, but it's not the worst in the league either.
We don't have that bad one.
Yeah.
The Colts are probably the worst on that list.
The Colts are. And
Yeah.
we've got the Colts who are sitting at 7-6, which they've won 6 games of their last 7. But still, sitting at 7-6, that's the best team we have to play from here out. That ain't bad because we've got them. Then we've got Tampa Bay, who played well last week and the week before, but they have struggled all season. And then I forget who we've got to round out the season. The Giants. So, not really worried about that.
We lost to them. We lost to them.
Yeah, who? I don't remember that game.
Once again, I want to forget. So let's move on here. We've been talking about football for a while. I want to talk about college basketball here real quick. Let's get into the rankings. Let's start off with that before we move into the Illini and that monstrosity. But first, number 1, Kansas. They've improved to 8-0 this season. They're going to be up there for a while. Duke's at 9-1. You got to remember, Duke's probably going to lose a couple conference games, or maybe 1 or 2. One that they shouldn't lose, like they lost to Gonzaga, like nobody thought was going to happen. Number 3, Tennessee, 7-1. They're really surprising all of us in this room. I never would have told you that Tennessee was going to be at the top 5, but it is the start of the season. They have not reached conference play yet. Gonzaga at 4. Man, they dropped from 1 to 4 in 2 days. All because of that loss they had. I can't remember who they lost to.
They lost to Tennessee.
That's right. They lost to Tennessee.
That's why they dropped right below them.
Absolutely. That's right. I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me. And not only did they lose, they lost pretty well, too. I mean, they looked like they didn't even want to play. Number 5, Michigan, 10-0. Michigan's going to stay in the top 5 all season. I'm a big Michigan fan when it comes to basketball. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm only saying that because they are the only Big Ten contender, in my opinion.
Can I ask a question here, since you guys follow college basketball a lot more closely than I do? Is what's the deal with a team that not only has more wins than any other team in the top 4, but also doesn't have a loss this season? Why they're not number 1?
I will argue this till the day I die because it doesn't make any sense to me either. I don't know how Michigan can't be top 3 at 10-0.
It comes to points scored on the season. It comes to points scored.
Points scored, opponents played against. It goes back to the who's tougher to play.
Yes.
Out of these dog crap teams. Just like it's skeptical in college football. Oh, our schedule was tougher. Okay, well, you played USC, who was ranked 8 at one point, but they're a trash team, and they always are. So are they really tough just because people think they're tough?
Come Big Ten play, Michigan, if they continue this streak, they're going to lose to somebody they shouldn't in the Big Ten. That's just how it works. I see Wisconsin as a very big contender against Michigan. But that's how it's going to work. That's how Michigan's going to move their way to the top.
See, I understand that, but this is what I don't want to happen is later in the season when Big Ten play starts, Michigan miss out on a top 4 seed in the top 25, and that forces them into the 2nd seed when it comes to the tournament. Right. When obviously they're good enough to be a 1,
absolutely,
and they don't get that right.
The ranking system is flawed in that,
right.
And it all comes down to who has a vote and who doesn't, who's biased and who's skeptical. It comes down to voting, strength of schedule, and points scored overall. Mm-hmm. The number 1 team in Kansas, they're 8-0, but they have 1,500 points. You look at Michigan, they're 2 points shy of 1,400. So that being said, Kansas is going to be number 1 even if they drop to 8-1. Because everybody's still going to vote Kansas. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It just
okay.
It bothers me.
It's biased and it doesn't
right.
make sense. But we get what you're saying.
But Michigan is going to be in the top 5 all season though, because they're the best team in the Big Ten. Number 6, Virginia. They're looking for some redemption from last year after losing the first round to UMBC. Shout out to them, a 1 seed taking down, or 16 taking down a 1 seed. I love it. First time it's ever happened. Nevada at 7. This team's not going to lose. This is going to be, I feel like, the first undefeated team since Indiana did it. This is going to be their toughest game coming up against Arizona, and they just beat Iowa State, who beat Illinois handily. They handed us that loss. Mm-hmm. So Arizona's going to be their next toughest team, and I feel like they're going to run all over them. So they might be the next undefeated team. And I also don't see why they shouldn't be at number 1, to be real honest. Another team that could be at number 1, but it all comes down to points scored.
All 3 of those teams, 5, 6, 7, Michigan,
Yep.
Virginia, Nevada, 10-0, 9-0, 10-0, and they're all sitting 5 and out. I can understand Kansas being undefeated at 8-0 as well, being up there, but Duke, Tennessee, and Gonzaga, we've all seen them lose. We've seen their weaknesses. I don't understand why they're still on top of these teams that haven't shown any weakness so far this year.
Kansas is the only one that hasn't played a tough opponent. Duke has played Gonzaga, Tennessee's played Gonzaga, Zaga's played Duke and Tennessee.
Right.
So excuse me. So that's the only reason why I don't know. It's just the ranking system is unbelievable. But let's move on here. Florida State at 10. Florida State's to completely turn their basketball program around. It's kind of impressive actually. Sitting at 8-1. That it's actually really impressive.
They made a run last year in the tournament, so it's good to see them actually not just a
Sweet 16
spin-off, not just a kind of one-and-done spin-off for them, so they're actually staying consistent this year and playing well.
Number 11, Texas Tech at 8-0. Number 12, North Carolina at 7-2. They always hang around the top 15 every year. Number 13, Virginia Tech 8-1. Buffalo, number 14 at 9-0. Number 15, Ohio State. So now we're getting into the Big Ten meat here. Ohio State, number 15, 8-1. Wisconsin 8-2 at 16. Villanova 8-2. They just lost to Penn the other night. Shout out to Penn, taking down. That's the first time that Villanova has not beat in. I can't remember what conference that is. Some in that conference in the last 22 years. They're 49-0 or something against Penn's conference, Ivy League conference. But that's unreal to think about. You move down, Mississippi State 8-1. They won't be up there very much longer. Kentucky 19, 7-2. I see Kentucky dropping even further. Arizona State at 7-1, number 20. Marquette, they're always up there. They're a tournament team. They prove they can play every season. They're 21st at 8-2. Number 22, Iowa 7-2. Number 23, Furman 10-0. Go Furman.
Who the hell is Furman?
I had to ask my dad the same question.
Some little crap team from Alabama or South Carolina.
Shout out to Furman, dude.
Shout out to Furman, 10-0. They've scored a combined 189 points this season. Houston, 8-0, number 24. They were in the national tournament last year. They got bounced in the second round. Number 25, this is where I want to get at. We got three teams at number 25. The first team, not ranked last week, was Indiana at 8-2, Syracuse at 7-2, and then K-State at 6-2.
Well, Nebraska and Maryland are sitting right behind them, too, at 115 points and 105 points. All those 25 teams have 118, so it's almost a five-way tie for that last spot.
Neck and neck. So, Gavin, 8-2 Indiana. There's one problem that Indiana's going to have come Big Ten play, and that is their youth. Youth in the Big Ten is never a good thing, but that's also a great thing for next year. They're young. Romeo Langford's going to be out there proving what he can do. Not this season, but I believe next season he is going to be a contender for Big Ten Basketball Player of the Year. I feel like the Big Ten Basketball Player of this season is going to go to Brosdagis from Michigan. But Gavin, Indiana is going to be a strong opponent next year in the Big Ten.
Absolutely. Shout out to Indiana for winning their last two games by a combined 3 points against Penn State and Louisville.
Two tough teams.
I watched both of those games and live, and that was, I tell you what, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I found myself yelling at the TV like I do for Bears games and, and other things.
I watched the Penn State game, and Romeo Langford's real. I mean, that guy is real. He came in highly rated. Not only did he come in highly rated, he's playing like he's a highly rated player.
One thing I wish that he would work on, and I can't stress this enough, is free throws, man. Free throws. They win games.
Right,
and I tell you what, when you miss 4, you miss 5, you miss 6 in a game, and you got 12, 14 opportunities, you can't be shooting 60% from the free throw line. It's unacceptable.
Yep.
Especially a guy as talented as Langford is. But all the other aspects of his game, I mean, he's definitely a playmaker. The way that he's able to rebound the ball from the 3 position, that's going to translate well in the NBA. I've just overall been really impressed with this team, especially taking out Louisville, who I know that they're also a very young team, but man, those guys are explosive when I watch that game. And then also Penn State, a very, very seasoned team. Always have really good players.
National tournament.
They always seem to, always contend, in anything that they're involved with.
Won the NIT last year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I've been really impressed.
Tennessee.
Finally, showing Indiana some respect in the rankings, and I couldn't be happier as a fan and a student.
One team I can't be happier for, in all honesty, which I wish this guy was still at Illinois, was number 25, Bruce Weber in K-State. I still feel like Bruce Weber should not have got fired at Illinois.
No, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault.
Here's the thing: is in 2005, his first season here at the U of I, he had a phenomenal team that was not his and Bill Self. That was Bill Self's team. You cannot fault Bruce Weber for not being able to recruit all this top-tier talent when it wasn't his team. Now, there's also the argument saying that he had all that talent. He made it to the national championship game and lost. They should have beat North Carolina.
No, they did win. They got screwed. They won.
Well, okay. So statistically they lost, or statistically they won. Factually they lost. But Bruce Weber should not have gotten fired from the University of Illinois. If Bruce Weber was still here, this would be a completely different program, in my opinion. Look what he's doing at Kansas State. Taking them to the tournament every year. Took down Kentucky last year in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, in the Sweet 16,
Sweet
they made
16,
it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unreal to think about. So Bruce Weber, I still agree with my dad. He should have never got fired from Illinois. Look, he took SIU, Carbondale, the Salukis to the Sweet 16 multiple times. So that just proves you what kind of coach he is. He also has the highest graduation rate of any coach in NCAA. Just keep that in mind, too. It's not only teaching his players on the floor about the game, he's teaching them off the floor as well. But let's move on to the Fighting Illini. 3-7, we're 10th in the Big Ten, and we're going to be down there for a while. This was the program that everybody had high hopes for, and those hopes are gone, in my opinion, especially when we got to play our second Big Ten game of the year against Indiana at Indiana on January 3rd. But we do have Eastern Tennessee State University, I believe, this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Tyson's going with me to that game. I don't know, man. This team has got a lot to work on, and it's going to do nothing. They can't do anything but get better, honestly.
That's true.
One play, I don't see them regressing unless next year they start out 1-8. I don't know, man. Maui was just a big disappointment. I want to highlight some positives on this, though. Samba Kane, that guy the other day against UNLV had in a game of his career. He has earned himself a starting spot, or a spot in the starting five, in my opinion. He has showed that he is raw, but he's got the talent. Him and Georgie are going to have to play very well come Big Ten play because Trent Frazier's honestly going to see the double team because he's the only person that can score, which is going to open up, the lane for Io to get to the rim. But I don't know, man. You guys got any opinions on this team this year?
I would like to say one thing is when you were talking about Feliz coming over
I'm still a big fan of him.
From junior college. I honestly didn't know what to expect, and you were talking him up like he was supposed to be the next best thing off the bench for Illinois. I think he's turned into my favorite player to watch on this team, especially after UNLV. And it's not only what he's able to do on the offensive side of things and just being a floor general. On the defensive side of the ball, I mean, he's stout. I mean, especially for as little as he is.
All around.
Yeah, he's a complete player. And I tell you what, we don't need anything more than a complete player on this roster right now. And someone that's been there and done it. And him being a junior, I think that helps tremendously. I think he's becoming a leader, and I understand this is supposed to be Frazier's team, but I really think
it always will be.
But I think there's room for him to become not the guy, but I think a 1-2 right next to Frazier. I think that he can be that second guy, the guy that we need in that second unit. Like we're talking it up for the past couple months.
Absolutely, and Fleas has proven that he can play. He's a baller. He's out there for a reason. And real quick, you said you were watching on TV. Did you notice that with the headband and the cornrows, he looks just like
D. Brown?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one that thought that.
I thought it was D. Brown for a second.
Me too.
I really did.
But he's got a similar play style too, very aggressive to the basket. Likes to dribble the ball, but there's always room for another voice, like Gavin was saying. Having this guy that's actually an upperclassman with a voice, it's nice to have him in that not leadership role. I mean, it's a leadership role, but it's not his team. He knows that. Everyone knows that it's Trent's team. But that doesn't mean he still can't talk and be there and have that voice. But this was the fear, really, was Illinois starting slow.
Yep.
With all these young guys, all these super young guys, all these freshmen, if they started slow, it was going to be a long year. And we were very hopeful that they weren't going to start slow. They would get off to a really good start, and it would continue throughout the year that way. But we've seen the opposite of it. So hopefully we can see some of that mental fortitude. All these guys, they're winners. They want to be winners. And that's why they came here to turn a program around. But we're really going to need to see that mental fortitude come out here and be able to switch this around, or it's going to be a really long season.
I want to highlight real quick before we move on to our last topic of the day, which I haven't really figured out yet. But I want to highlight our first three Big Ten games, or our next three Big Ten games when we kick it off on the 3rd of January. We're at number 25 right now, currently, Indiana, for our first one. Then we're up at Northwestern less than 3 days later. And I do not like playing Northwestern because Northwestern has completely turned their program around when it comes to athletics. We saw that in football this season when they made it to the Big Ten championship. Not as promising as what they wanted to have happen, but they did hang with them for the first 3 quarters. And then our last game, we come home against number 5, who? Michigan. I'm not real excited for that game on the 10th against Michigan because I know what's going to happen. We might play well in the first half, but we're just going to run out of gas. It's just all that's going to happen. We cannot keep up with the team of Michigan's caliber.
Well, let's not forget a couple years ago when Michigan came here when they were ranked, we gave them a butt whooping by 20 points.
Yeah, hopefully that can happen again, but do I see it realistically?
Well, no, I don't think any of us in this room think that that's a realistic possibility, but the fact that it happened in recent history makes me think that, well, history could repeat itself.
Hopefully it does. I mean, well, like I said, I'm going to ride with this team until I'm no longer on this earth, no matter how good or how bad they are. I just want to one day see our revenue sports actually be competitive. You know what I'm saying? But, let's move on to something that actually is competitive when it comes to the Illini. How about that volleyball team? Man, they lost it last night in the Final Four against Nebraska. The first 2 sets, they were dominant. I don't know if you guys got to see any of it. I didn't figure anybody would.
No, I didn't see much.
Yeah, I'm afraid I didn't catch that.
Okay, so let's move. They made it to the Final Four. They were 31-3 on the year. So think about that. They lost 3 games.
They were ranked number 3 in the nation.
After being not ranked at the start of the year, they ended up 31-3. They only lost 1 game at Huff Hall this year, and that came to Wisconsin, who they took down in the Elite Eight.
I know the hall's always packed. It's always packed.
Bumping.
Yeah.
But no, in Chris Thomas's first year here at the University of Illinois, he ended up taking over for Kevin Hambley, who is going to win the national tournament on Saturday at Stanford, which he's from Southern California, so you can't blame him for taking the Stanford job. That Stanford volleyball team is unreal. They just looked like, I don't even know what. It was unreal watching them play. But I want to give a shout-out to the University of Illinois women's volleyball team for making it to number 3. Not only that, making it to the Final Four. They had Nebraska, who is the reigning national champion, in the first 2 sets. They just ran out of gas, and then they ended up losing 3 sets to 2 in the best of 5. But that's just doing nothing for hope for next season. It's just unreal that our golf team, our gymnastics team won a national championship. Our golf team was runner-up against Vanderbilt. Our women's volleyball team is taken off, but what's wrong with our football and basketball programs? Nobody can know.
A lot.
There's a lot wrong. Well, let's move on to baseball. We ain't talked about that in a while. Bryce Harper. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Am I talking a lot?
No, go ahead, man.
All right, so let's get on to the hot stove. Bryce Harper. Tyson, Gavin, where do you boys think he's going to end up?
I honestly don't know at this point. I'm still hoping for Chicago, preferably the blue team. But it's looking like the white ones might have a chance. There's a lot of teams that have a lot to offer this kid, though. He's going to have a lot of thinking to do. We saw a couple weeks ago there was a picture posted. Him and his wife went to a concert with Chris Bryant and his wife.
That was in Vegas, right?
Yes, it was. And I'm really hoping that having those family ties will help us out a little bit, help him bring to the Cubs. But there's a lot of teams with a lot to offer, and a lot of them are willing to offer him all of it. So I will have to see, but I honestly don't know. But I'm still hoping for Chicago.
Go ahead.
Well, he took the words right out of my mouth. I think that the Cubs have a pretty good shot. I had heard about that on Bleacher Report that Chris Bryant went out with Bryce Harper.
That'd be a good name, though.
Yeah, it would be.
Like the Brizzo souvenir.
Went out with him and his wife, and I thought that was a pretty good way to pitch to him. Hey, man, come play for the Cubs. But then Cale comes in here before we started the show, and I think he's more than confident that Bryce Harper is going to end up on the White Sox.
100% confident.
So, hey, you know what? If that's where he ends up, as long as he's in Chicago, I could really care less because that'd give me something to do. I'd watch Bryce Harper in a Chicago uniform. I know you guys would prefer to see him in a Cubs uniform, but if he ends up being a White Sox, that'd be awesome.
You want to know why the White Sox are the front runner? They have a blank checkbook. Mm-hmm. That's why they're the front runner.
Because they're not paying anybody. They don't have anyone on their team.
They pay their superstar in Bryce Harper. What's that going to do? It's going to make one of the other guys want to come play for him. The Cubs aren't going to sign him for 2 reasons. 1, Theo can't pay him. 2, the Ricketts family ain't going to allow Theo to pay him because they got no money. They don't have a TV deal. So here's the thing. They go out and they give Bryce Harper, what they give Darvish, 110?
126.
So they give Darvish 126. Let's say they give Harper a similar contract. That's going to cut into their draft picks. And not only that, more importantly, it's going to cut into their international signing money. Theo ain't going to do that because Theo wants to sign prospects. He's all about building the farm system. But at some point, Theo, you might have to give up a couple draft picks with as good as our drafts or our prospects are and lose some international signing money. It's just how it is if you want to get a superstar.
Well, and it's not only that. The White Sox have built up their farm system the past few years. And
They're ready.
Bryce Harper would fit in just fine. He'd be the star player, and he'd have a really good supporting cast coming up that have been waiting for someone like him to show up.
You know what's going to happen with the White Sox if they sign Harper is that they are going to keep those prospects down one more season. One more year they're going to keep them down in AAA or AA, wherever they're at, wherever on their roster, wherever they have room. They're going to keep them down one more season. They sign Harper, they get him acquainted in Chicago with the White Sox, they're going to bring him up. Or they're going to bring all those prospects up at once. You know why? They're all on rookie deals, so they don't got to pay them nothing. And they're going to get all-star caliber value out of them. So, I don't know. I just honestly feel with the potential that the farm system has with the Chicago White Sox and the blank pocketbook that they have up there, that it's just going to end up being a done deal for Harper to Chicago, but not for the team we want him on the south side. I don't know. Manny Machado, too, we can't count him out. Like I said, the Sox have a blank checkbook. Imagine if they sign Harper and Machado. It's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but I don't think it's...
The Yankees GM came out and said that they're not.
I don't want to hear anything about
They're not
Brian
in the
Cashman.
Bryce Harper runnings. They did say they are interested in looking actively for the shortstop position.
They need it.
But
Troy
they said they're
Tulowitzki
not.
is available. Just want to throw that out there.
But they said they're not really in the Bryce Harper running. Now, it's still not out of the question, but they don't have the money for both of them, and if they need one, they need shortstop. So
They don't have the money for both of them because they got Aaron Judge and Giancarlo.
right, their outfield is a little crowded at this point.
Imagine
as
that,
well,
though.
so.
Just, okay, I don't want this to happen, but as a hypothetical, can we think about Bryce Harper, Giancarlo Stanton, and Aaron Judge in the
You got
outfield all together?
3 home run derby champions.
I don't know if I want that to happen.
I don't think it'll happen, though.
It won't
I mean,
happen because
I don't-
Cashman won't allow that to happen.
About to
I'm
say,
almost guaranteeing it won't happen.
Well, can I just take this moment real quick since you brought up shortstop? Can I just take a moment to thank Troy Tulowitzki for his 5 years in Toronto with the Blue Jays?
R.I.P.
We had to let him go, finally starting the rebuild. Thank you, Cale, for making me come to the realization that this has to happen.
Why are you upset? You got to watch Vladdy Guerrero Jr.
No, I
this
mean,
season.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's exciting, but first I had to see Josh Donaldson go, then I had to see Troy Tulowitzki go, and before that I had to watch Encarnacion go. So it's like this team that I watched for 3 years that was so good, I finally see it being taken apart, and a little part of me is gone.
I feel you.
know,
But here's the thing: when it comes to baseball, I don't feel much sympathy for people that go through rebuilds because we went through a 108-year rebuild that lasted 21 years of our lives.
Yep.
I apologize for being a little harsh on that. I apologize.
well, I mean, hey, you
It's
guys.
a necessary evil.
It has to happen, though.
No,
Look at it that
no,
way.
and I understand
It has
that, but that's with any sport. One thing I will say is that I don't want to hear it from you guys because you still have more championships than the Blue Jays, and I don't want to hear it.
Well, we have 3 now.
I'll keep my 2. We can move on.
We'll talk about some NBA to wrap it up.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, so we've been sitting here talking for a while. Can we talk about some 2 early Rookie of the Years?
Absolutely. If you want to talk about Luka Doncic,
Luka Doncic.
we can talk about Luka Doncic.
If you want to talk about Luka,
All right, Gav, give us the scoop on Luka. What's going on?
His Rookie of the Year, hands down, Trae Young, DeAndre Ayton, no one else stands a chance. Sorry, Jaren Jackson Jr. and anyone else that got drafted in the lottery, you're done. Luka Doncic is a Rookie of the Year. Future MVP, already MVP of the Euro League at 19 years old. This kid is a phenom, and I swear to you, the Mavericks, they're going places. They're going places. I don't care if they just dropped one to the Suns. Everyone needs to lose a game here and there. But Luka Doncic is an absolute stud. And I said this going in. I know Tyson was big on this guy too. And there's no reason this guy shouldn't have been the first pick in the draft. How he dropped to number 4 is beyond me. The Kings are stupid. The Memphis Grizzlies are stupid. And whoever had the first pick, you're stupid.
The Kings are playing really good basketball right now, too. Imagine if they had a Doncic to that mix.
Exactly. Could you imagine him and De'Aaron Fox? Because they're in the 8 seed right now for the playoffs.
Dallas and Sacramento are actually in 7 and 8 right now. They're holding down the last 2 spots for the playoffs in the West, which is nuts to think about, considering they're beating teams like Portland, San Antonio, New Orleans, Utah,
Houston.
Houston's bad.
Minnesota. Really, the only team that I think those 2 should still be on top of is Phoenix. But I don't even know what to say or where to begin. Both those teams are playing incredible.
It's coming together,
We
man.
haven't seen it in years from these 2 teams. So, yeah, Luka and that whole young roster for Sacramento.
Can I just say this? He's putting up all-star numbers, and granted, this is borderline all-star numbers, but he's putting up all-star numbers in his first year in the league. This kid's 19 years old, 18 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds. I mean, this is something we expect them from maybe like 3-4 years in the league, And this guy's doing it in his rookie season. Not only that, he's doing it in the first 2 months of the season.
That's something I expect out of Victor Oladipo being a Pacers fan.
Exactly.
You know, that stat line there, what he's averaging. Not a guy who's 19, although he did play professionally in Euro leagues. I get that. But, man, that kid. Have you seen him play a whole game this year? Have you got to see him play yet?
I haven't got to see a full Mavericks game other than highlights, but because I try to watch the highlights of every team.
Right.
But from what I've seen, and when you listen to what players have to say about him, if you listen to what DeAndre Jordan says, if you listen to what Dirk Nowitzki says, I mean, just the way that he carries himself, and even the rookies. I mean, Dennis Smith Jr., he'll tell you, this is an incredible teammate. I mean, he's a good guy on and off the court. And he wants to win. He's a winner. He's a dog. And that's what you need. I think that's what the Mavericks were missing since Dirk started getting older. You know, since 2012, 2013, when he really started to age. I mean, this is what they've been waiting for. And I know they tried to sign Harrison Barnes to be that guy, which was ridiculous. He was the fourth string on that Warriors championship team in 2015. This is the guy they've been waiting for. And I really think Doncic is the key. Not this year, but I think next year and moving forward, they got a real shot to make a playoff run.
Okay, so let's move on from that. The Bulls need Phoenix right now to win one more game in order to get Zion Williamson.
Yeah. Look at the bright side. Very nice.
He's from Chicago, isn't he?
Zion?
Yeah.
No, he's from South Carolina.
Oh, South Carolina? I must be thinking of somebody else. Whoops.
R.J. Barrett's from Chicago.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of then. I knew one of those Duke players was from Chicago.
Those are 1, 2, 3. Cam Reddish and Zion Williamson.
Oh,
I see
absolutely.
Zion going first, but I see Cam Reddish going second over R.J. Barrett.
Yeah, and then Barrett third.
Yeah.
Really?
I do.
I don't know.
I mean, here's Barrett's good. I think Reddish has more potential.
All around,
Yeah,
I feel like Reddish is more NBA
I think
ready.
Barrett is.
He's
I
NBA
think
ready.
Barrett is more complete, but I think Reddish has higher potential.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying. I think Barrett is NBA ready. Reddish is obviously still a raw talent, but the potential with him is an A+. I mean, you have no idea what you're going to get. You could get the next Hall of Famer, or you could get someone that's going to cap out as a role player.
Yeah.
But the potential is still there nonetheless.
But let's keep on this factor on the NBA. The Bulls need something. Wow. So I just heard from you this afternoon that they could potentially going to be, after just signing him, losing Jabari Parker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're looking to trade him right now.
They fired Fred Hoiberg, and we haven't been able to talk about that, so thank God he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, can we start talking, instead of renovating players, can we renovate John Paxson and Gary Foreman?
I was
Foreman?
just about to say that.
Can that be a thing?
Garpax
This
needs
is
to
the
go.
exact reason why I'm not a Bulls fan anymore. I can't stand to watch this.
Oh yeah, that's exactly why I left the Bulls train and was a
I
second.
still want them to succeed,
Was it
but I can't.
2013 when Derrick Rose tore his ACL for like the third time? I said, yeah, the Bulls they're not doing anything to help him, so I'm done. And somehow these guys are still in the front office 5-6 years later.
It doesn't make sense.
Absolutely not. This team hasn't made the playoffs since Derrick Rose left in 2013.
Yep.
And so you're going to tell me, oh, it's a coaching problem? You've been through 3 head coaches already.
They made it with Dwayne Wade and Rondo in the first round. They made it then, didn't they?
Oh, I'm sorry, they did. Yeah, and then they lost in the first round. I guess I should say playoff success. I'll say that much.
Yeah, word it that way. That makes a lot more sense.
What
do they got? Lowry? Lowry's a stud.
Larry Markkinen, he's probably their brightest spot, if not
And
Zach
Wendell
LaVine.
Carter. And Wendell Carter.
Yeah, they're two, sophomore and rookie, but then I really think Zach LaVine is the guy you got to build around here.
But it's sad that you have to sit there and you have to say that your two best players are Lowry Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr., a rookie and a sophomore player.
Who?
Yeah.
Yeah, who?
Wendell Carter's a stud. That guy, he's putting up great numbers too.
He's not getting enough playing time.
No.
And I don't know why they're not playing him more than 20 minutes a game.
John Paxson.
Boo.
Listen, I'm not in the front office, but if Wendell Carter isn't playing minimum 20 minutes a game, I don't know what you're doing. I mean,
when they got smacked the other night by the Celtics, 133-79 or whatever that was, the worst
56.
We'll
Yeah.
just say a lot to a little.
Yeah.
It was 133-79 or something.
77.
Oh, that's even worse. So 56-point loss. The starters didn't even play the last 21 minutes of the game.
No, because they knew it was over. They gave up. They had to. I mean, what do you do after the end of the third quarter if you're down by 30 points? What do you do?
Something. Did you make it 20 points? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Make it 20 points? I don't know. I just can't get over that. 56-point loss, the worst loss in Chicago Bulls history, but they're still second in ticket sales.
People love their Bulls. I mean, I
That's
don't.
exactly why nothing's going to change in the front office.
Well, that's why it took the Cubs 108 years. There was a book written on economics and why the Cubs would never win a World Series, which wasn't true, but it had a lot of good reasoning behind it, because as long as you continue to sell out your seats in Chicago, like the Cubs did for 108 years, they had sold out games every night of every week of every year, sold out. Why pay for good players? Why go out and spend this money if you can pay for crap and still get people to buy it? If you can polish a turd instead of crapping out something nice, why not keep crapping out that turd? There's no point to go out and actually pay for a gold turd instead of it. So it's going to be a long time before the Bulls succeed, because why pay out this money? Why go get a LeBron James? Why go get one of these top tier guys? Why build a team when you don't really have to? When you can pay a bunch of guys minimal money to make you a whole bunch. So I think it's going to be a long time before the Bulls succeed until they get rid of that front office, so they can actually begin a rebuild, because you can't really rebuild around this because they're not willing to rebuild because there's no point for them.
Well, and not only that, I mean,
this is such a sad topic, and I'm laughing at that gold turd.
You had when Michael Jordan fell into the lap in 1984. You had Phil Jackson come in a few years later, and then you had Scottie Pippen come in a few years later. So I mean, the success that they had, it wasn't necessarily what they built or anything that they came up with, especially this regime they have right now. It just kind of happened, you know. And after that first three-peat, when Michael came back in 1995, Phil Jackson was still the coach, and he went and recruited Dennis Rodman from the Pistons. So you need people like that are willing to go out of their way. And obviously, the Bulls front office now has made it abundantly clear that they're incompetent of even putting together a roster that can even be competitive in the Eastern Conference. I mean, it's just sad.
Yeah.
So Toronto 23-7, Milwaukee 18-9, Philly 19-10, Pacers 18-10. Right there, bang, top four. Go Pacers. We
Go
got
Sixers. Jimmy Butler out there succeeding. Look at the Timber Bulls at the bottom of the division, right on top of Phoenix.
They're playing.
Glad to see them lose.
Pacers are playing the 76ers tonight. I believe it's in Indiana. Let me double check. It's a big game for Indiana, though.
It's a big game
Absolutely.
for both of them.
Because this will be Indiana's first meeting with the Sixers since acquiring Jimmy Butler, so it should be really interesting.
It is in Philly.
This is also a potential playoff implication matchup. These two teams could very easily meet in the Eastern Conference playoffs. So, it's a big matchup for both of them.
Can we talk about the Raptors sweeping the Warriors in the season series?
I love that.
We talk about that real quick. Without Kawhi Leonard playing?
Anybody in the East that can beat Golden State, anybody, thank God.
I mean, I just want to say that not only that, the Raptors hadn't beat Golden State at Golden State since 2004. Can we take a moment to appreciate that?
Wow. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
14 years since we beat the Warriors in their own building. And
Go
the
Raps.
Warriors weren't good for a long time there in the mid-2000s either.
Right.
So it's not like it's just been this team that's been dominating the entire time. The Raptors, man, we have some dark days after Vince Carter and Chris Bosh. We had some dark days.
You guys just lost Valanciunas for 4 to 6 weeks, so what's that mean?
That means Moose is going to have to step up. Greg Monroe's going to have to step up off the bench.
I think it's an extra loss or two. That's about it.
Yeah, if anything, he is a big contributor off the bench, but I mean, we're not losing anything defensively.
No.
So, I mean, we're fine.
You're our NBA guy in here.
Mm-hmm.
You know the ins and outs. Take your bias out of everything. To be honest with me, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
With the addition of Kawhi Leonard, we all know what that brought to the table. I want to end it on this. Did you expect this Toronto team to be this hot?
Yes.
Take your bias out of it.
Yes.
Can you explain why?
Yes. Kawhi Leonard, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. This Raptors team was built off defense with Dwayne Casey, was one of the best defensive coaches in the league, coached under Rick Carlisle in Dallas when they won the championship in 2011, beat the Heatles. I mean, it was built off of defense. When you take the best defensive player in the league, which Kawhi is, and you put him on the best defensive team in the league, obviously not statistically, but when Dwayne Casey was there, we were a top 3 defensive team for the majority of the year. And then you take a guy like Nick Nurse, who's offensive-minded, who was the assistant coach under Dwayne Casey, was an offensive guru. He now takes over. You already have a defensive identity, and you put an offensive-minded guru at the helm of this team. I mean, it's a 1-2 punch. That's why the Raptors are top 5 in offense and top 10 in defense this year.
Absolutely.
So, I mean...
I saw them playing well. I didn't really think they'd be on top of the league.
No.
I wasn't expecting them to be better than Houston, better than Golden State. I was expecting them to be 1 or 2 in the East, not 1 by 5 games on both divisions.
2 things about that. One, I don't think anyone saw this drop-off from the Houston Rockets. That completely blindsided everybody. And 2, let me clarify, I meant the Raptors on top of the East. I did not expect Golden State to drop 9 games in their first 30. I didn't see that coming at all. But other than that, I truly think the Raptors are the second best team in the NBA, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be.
Behind who?
Golden State.
I still think there's very, very good chances that Golden State wins again this year.
Absolutely.
But I think the East finally has a team that might contend and might not get swept.
Yeah.
Since LeBron and Cleveland.
Well, since they beat them, or if you want to count the year before that. Yeah.
Right, since their last win.
Which was
a couple years ago.
15, 16? When was
2016, the Cavs won it. 17,
that? When the
Warriors won in 5, and then the Cavs got swept this last year.
Yeah.
But, no, other than that, I think it's Golden State, Toronto, and then I think your third, you're probably looking at, man, right now it's either Milwaukee or Philadelphia. I don't know, because in the West, I mean, you got the Clippers, you got the Thunder, but do I really think that they could beat Milwaukee or Philadelphia in a 7-game series? I don't think not right now. Not right now.
I don't think that the Clippers can beat Giannis.
No.
But when it comes to Philly is now a completely well-rounded team because they got their fourth quarter guy and Jimmy Butler. Joel Embiid's starting to pick it up. He had a little 4 or 5 game skid there where he wasn't playing very well. I seriously don't think, though, on that topic that him and Jimmy Butler are getting along very well.
I think that Joel is I don't want to say that he's petty, but I think he's a little upset that Jimmy's stealing a little bit of his spotlight.
I mean, honestly, I can't blame Joel Embiid. I understand that. But at the same time, win a championship, the process. This is the process. It's over. They push their chips in. It's there. They got to go win it this year.
Right.
Real quick, shout out to the Denver Nuggets for having the best record in the West right now. I think that they have a real shot to make it to the conference finals this year if they can keep it up. And if for whatever reason they can beat Golden State, if DeMarcus Cousins doesn't come back healthy, if Steph Curry can't stay healthy, if Durant and Draymond still want to continue to bicker back and forth,
I don't see Draymond making it to the end of the year.
Well, it's very possible. I mean, there's been talks that he's on the trade block, but the Warriors won't admit that he's on the trade block. Right. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
In all honesty, who do you keep, KD or Draymond?
Is that a question?
Exactly. It's what Golden State's saying right now.
This is going to be. This might be a little strange. I would keep Draymond Green. I would let Kevin Durant walk and try to keep Draymond as much as I can. Because remember, this team won 73 games without Kevin Durant.
Right.
Yeah,
that was my one argument was they don't know if Kevin Durant's going to stay this year or not.
Right.
And they won without him. We know they can do it without him. So.
But you can't keep them both.
That's the one argument. But yeah, it's not going to work with both.
All right. I think that's all we got.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, that worked out pretty well. Yeah.
I like this new format.
All right, cool. Well, if you enjoyed that conversation or that little whatever, what are we going to call that? Conversations. Yeah, I like that. If you enjoyed those conversations, please hit that like button down below. Also, hit that big red subscribe button and subscribe to the Twin City Trio Podcast so you guys never miss a beat. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter at our handle, which is, what is the handle again? At Sports_Twin. Man, it's been a while. With that said, my name is Gavin Campbell. That was Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming. We will see you guys next time.
Peace.
Bye.
Based upon the view